All right, welcome to class, so to speak. So I wanted to start this educational series, I'm calling it, because I get, as you can imagine, daily, I get a lot of the same questions, okay, on a broad sense, all right? And so I figured I could come to you with some sections of video that kind of explain how things work, pretending that anybody watching this has never done a transaction, has never owned a rental, has ever done anything at the beach related to a second home property or investment, okay? That's the way I'm gonna come at this. And so my hope is that you can find value and find this as a resource that you can come back to. Or if you're gonna be working with me, I might just send you this and say, hey, just have a look at this. I think it'll answer a lot of the questions. And then it'll allow us to really focus on the property type, okay? So I hope you find value in this. And today what I wanted to start with is that I thought I would bring you the most frequently asked questions when people call me and say something around the following. Casey, we've been thinking about buying an investment property at the beach or something we would rent. And then here come the questions, right? And that's probably my most common questions or question types that I get. We live in a second home market. I do help plenty of primary and things like that. But these are the most frequent questions that I get around the rental investment aspect. So I thought I'd just bring them to you. We walk through those and hopefully this will be a good resource for you. And also feel free in the comments if there's something you feel that I'm missing from these answers. Feel free to add anything, because a lot of you watching, very experienced, may have owned multiple rental properties or properties in the area. So feel free, let's chime in, tell me what I'm missing, but I'm gonna tell you the way that I answer this each time, and I think this will be fun. So let's start out with number one, and I didn't necessarily put these in order of what I get the most, but this is the way it happens. So number one right here, I've got, can I cover my cost of ownership, all right? I get that one a lot, or it leads with this, hey Casey, I'm looking to purchase something, but I wanna cover my costs, okay? And what they're saying there is that for my outlay each year, I want the annual rental income to take care of it, so it's like it's just paying for itself, right? So my answer to that is this is getting harder, but also there's a lot of variables at play in that. I get this call from cash buyers, people putting 50% down, people going after the minimal down payment, okay, with regards to financing. As you can imagine, it's hard for me to answer that question until I know exactly what your outlay is going to be. So for a cash person, once they put their cash in, the cost of ownership each year around HOA fees, insurance, things like that is their only outlay. It becomes a lot easier to have that conversation of covering those costs. But if you're carrying a mortgage, we got to factor in the mortgage, because a lot of times it's going to be a healthy portion of what we're even talking about, all right? So that needs to be my question up front, and one thing that you could relay to me, hey Casey, we're buying with cash, hey Casey, we're going to put 20% down, and then we can start through that. As a general rule, this is getting more difficult as our area has gotten more popular. Let's take 30A for instance. It is very difficult to find something that quote unquote pays for itself. Now, what investors have enjoyed and what I've loved helping my folks with is the fact that 30A has seen more appreciation overall over the last couple of years than most every other market segment. So sometimes there's a trade-off, all right? Let's take Navarre. Let's take West Panama City Beach, for instance. Those two pockets, while they're not my primary markets, I have found tremendous rental potential in those two markets, meaning that for the purchase price, the rental income ratio is stronger in those two markets than they are in Destin and on 30A, okay? So it's not uncommon to find a $500,000 property, so to say, that's doing $50,000 to $60,000 in rental in those properties. That is getting harder in Destin and on 30A. You can still find it in Destin more than you can 30A, okay? Casey, why is that important? Well, there's a ratio that historically here at the beach, investors have targeted out of the gate, and if it hit in that ratio, the cost can make a lot more sense. And that ratio is if the gross rental of the property, just the gross, is 10% of the purchase price, okay? Meaning that If the property is $1 million, you would like to see $100,000 in gross rental income as kind of a barrier to entry, like a entry point to start the discussion about, is that a great property, right? Does that make sense? I can tell you right now, anything, and I'm sitting in 2024, anything that hits that 10% mark is going to get gobbled up pretty quickly, all right? They're getting fewer and far between, mainly because the area has gotten popular and the purchase price has superseded the rental rates, okay? I think there will be some evening out of that, but if you find a $2 million property that's doing $200,000 or a $500,000 property that's doing $50,000, that's kind of attack mode. That's time to really get serious. In most cases, that's not the ratio that we're coming in. It's more in that 6 to 8%. But then we just peel back the layers and understand the total cost. But those are the things that we're talking about, all right? So when we talk about covering it, how are you purchasing it? And what's most important to you? How much are you gonna be using it personally? Do you want the max rental? I mean, there's a lot of variables, okay? But that's always the first question typically, or the announcement that's made to me is, hey, we're looking for something that's just gonna pay for itself, okay? And then we have to unwind from there, all right? Number 2, Casey, what do you think's better, condo or single family home as it comes to rental? Really good question. And I'm gonna give you a very generic answer. I'm equal part on both, because I've seen proven performers on both of them enough that I think it'd be wrong of me to say these do better than these. I can tell you with single family, you have the opportunity to kind of get a little bit more creative with those, whether it be the private pool side that can maybe make you single out, how you design the house, things like that, outdoor amenities that can kind of bring folks to you. A condo is a condo is a condo. Cosmetically, you can make it look different. But there's only so many things you can do to make it stand out. So I say it like this. If you take a market segment and say, okay, these condos are doing this, you've got to really go in there and go, okay, cosmetically, is there anything that I can do to this condo that's going to make it stand out from what might be 20 other condos that are the same shape and size within the building? With a single family home, taking with the assumption that the floor plan is good, a lot of times you can look at amenities that might be unique to the home itself that can make it stand out amongst ones even on the street, okay? So there's a little bit more flexibility to play with there on what you can create, the environment, the games you put in the house, around the house, pool, hot tub, whatever's going on. There's a little bit more flexibility to get creative on a single family home, but as far as income, there's still a huge segment of the market that loves the condos, all right? So if you're looking to get creative, the single family home might be a little bit more your speed on what you can create, all right? But you know this too, I can get you a lot closer to the beach for the money on a condo than I can a single family home, all right? So a couple things, so there's not one that stands out to me. You're not gonna hear me say that, like definitely go after this, but we talk through these things and say, okay, is there anything we can enhance here, right? Number 3, is there a sweet spot in pricing where the rental makes most sense? I get this a lot, and it's a really, really good question. And my initial answer is, it's always a moving target on what that is. So for those that don't know what we're asking here, a lot of times in the marketplace, you might look and go, man, okay, at $750, they're not doing really a lot of rental. Okay, there's that, like in the market right now, it might be $750 is doing 50 grand rental. But when you go up to $1 million, there's some of those that are doing 90, because that $1 million mark might put you closer to the beach and it might elevate the rents, and it becomes a little bit of a sweeter spot than $750. So when you're looking at the cost, okay, and this is just an example, this is not concrete, but when you're looking at the cost, you say, okay, listen, we're buying at $750 because that's our goal, but it's the carrying of that is more expensive than it is at $1 million because the rental goes up, okay? So there's nothing set in stone, there's no magic number on where that happens, but case in point might be, let's say 3-bedroom homes are priced at X, But when you bump up to a 4-bedroom home that's $200,000 more, the rent elevates with that 2-bedroom and the ratio becomes stronger. So there are cases down here, if you're flexible with your purchase price somewhat, okay, within that range, your out of pocket may be less by spending more than it is by spending less depending on what the rental's doing. So that's what they're asking when they're saying sweet spot is, hey, kind of want to spend $500, but like, does it make more sense at $750? And you just look at the rental and go, actually, when you get to $750, it goes up to like 75 grand in rental for that property type. So in a lot of cases, it can. All right. So that's what we mean by that sweet spot. And that's why I get that question is people kind of look and see where is that spot where I can really get like the most bang for the buck? And they do exist. There are portions where you can actually put more annually in your pocket or less out by stepping up in price, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but it's just because the rental may flow in that direction once you get to say a 4-bedroom versus a 3. Okay, so it's a really good question. Number 4, always get this one, and it's one I want to educate you on. What's the typical management fee we should expect from a rental management company? Now, full disclosure, I do not own a rental management company. I have never gotten into that business. I like to sell the properties, but I have great relationships out there. They probably don't want me to disclose all their rental management fees until they get a chance to talk to you. But here's what I tell my customers. When we're doing these calculations, anytime I send you a rental number, okay, whatever the rental is, it's going to be the gross amount. And I tell you to calculate 25% management fee on that. Now, there are some that go above that. There are some companies and some neighborhoods that are more expensive than 25%. And there are some rental companies that will negotiate less than 25%. Okay? Listen, I tell people it's kind of like real estate agents. There's some agents out there that'll do higher commissions and lower commissions, okay? And you've got to find that person that makes sense with what you're looking to do, because not all these rental companies or real estate agents are created equal, right? So some of the ones that do in the teens on the rental management side might not be the best fit for you, so they charge more and maybe you get more in that fee out of it, right? So I use 25% and then I introduce you to what I think would be good fits for that property based on what I know about it. I usually send out multiple rental companies as an example, and then you can talk to them and see if they'll negotiate on the fee. But for our math, use 25%, and then we'll walk through that based on the property type and kind of help you find the best fit for you on the management side, right? That makes sense. The world's negotiable, as they say, and people have set prices and you just work with them. But I use 25% and then we'll go from there, all right? Some things that make a rental stand out. Again, I only help people with rentals, but I show a lot of rental property, okay? And I'll tell you some of the top things that make it stand out that I see it pushing the issue. Obviously, the updated cosmetics to whatever the modern day is, okay? If it looks good online and the pictures look great, it's gonna happen. I will tell you this. Get good photography, folks. It's not that expensive. I have great photographers, but man, when I'm looking down through there, I get on to some of my folks because their pictures do not look good. You can get a really good photographer and it's gonna take you a long way with these rental properties, okay? Here's another thing that I'm looking for in houses specifically, and that's where you can get the most flexibility. There's a big trend right now. I love helping folks find properties that might have multiple living spaces in the home. And it doesn't mean it has to be a large home, but there's a trend where maybe the adults want to have a section downstairs and somewhere to send the kids to, so everybody's not fighting over the TV or video games, right? And I've seen these secondary living spaces in just like loft areas. You don't need anything super huge, but I've seen it be a game changer on what your rental can do, because I know when I'm looking with my family and we're traveling with other families, we love to know that there's a place that the kids can go to have their own space, and they want that anyway. They need their own space to do their own thing, right? So 2 living spaces I've seen be a game changer. In a lot of places around 38 and Destin, golf cart, the ability to have a golf cart has been a game changer. Pool is always I would say having a private pool, no matter what size, is still one of the things that can elevate your property on a percentage the most. It's probably the biggest return on value for the cost of the pool and how quickly you can get that back that makes it stand out above all others. And I know you were hearing me say this and it sounds like, hey Casey, that sounds like all things that you just get with single family homes versus condos. Aside from the cosmetic and the big TVs and things like that, you're exactly right. But as I said, you just don't have as much flexibility with condos to kind of make it and go stand out. You really got to focus on the cosmetic, countertops, things like that. Where in the house, you get to play with the functionality a little bit, okay? So that's a really good question. What area has the best short-term rental ROI? Now, I alluded to this earlier. Man, you know, for me, it's kind of a tricky thing. I always say this, you talking about like, next month, what you're going to put in your pocket or what you're putting in your pocket 5 years from now. I'm a long-term investor myself. I don't look at much on the short term, okay? And most of my clients, we don't flip a lot of properties. The opportunity may be there, but if one of my clients is watching this and commenting below, like the one I'm about to list, I mean, gosh, they bought that back in 18. I mean, we're going to make $1 million+ on that resale. Now, the rental on 38 has not been like where it's been overwhelming, where it's been necessarily paying for itself, okay, on an annual basis. So they've had to invest some back into it. But the ROI on the appreciation that it's had has been tremendous. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but I just want to bring that up. Now, for the annual purposes, like if you're just saying, hey, I've got this money, I've got enough for a down payment, and I'm looking to have as little come out of pocket as possible so that I can have a great beach house and not have to worry about it every year, and it can pay for itself or come really close. I think that's the question. And there's two that stand out. This is September of 2024. I have helped clients in Navarre and West Panama City Beach, okay? For the purchase price on what the rental rates can be, the immediate return on the money is better in those areas right now, the inventory that I've seen, of anywhere else on the coast. Now, I'll dig hard for you in Destin and on 30A, but it's just that those price points have gotten to a point, and they deserve it per the comps, where it gets harder to find the ratios that we can in those other areas. Now, am I as big of a believer on the long-term appreciation in Navarre and West Panama City Beach as I am in Destin and 30A? It's wrong of me to say that I feel the same just because the evidence isn't there that it's risen that much. But it does rise. And in the meantime, your carrying costs are not as much historically based on what I'm seeing out there. Okay? So it doesn't make one less of an investment than the other, but it depends on what you're looking to buy it for, right? So if you're a person that's like, I got X I want to put down, I want to have as little out of pocket each year as possible, which fits most people, and you're completely flexible on where you want to go. This is the biggest stopper. I've had this conversation with many people and they start out with, hey, I want to go anywhere. Like, as long as the money makes sense, I want to stay there. And I always tell them, I'm like, look, you're going to be the first. You're going to be the first because there's some personal attachment here, okay? Like, this is a place, when you're talking about this investment, when I mainly help people, it needs to be a place where when you're having a long week in Atlanta, Dallas, Nashville, wherever you're looking at this from, you want to have a place that you love, your family loves, and you look forward to coming to. Because that's what's going to keep this alive. So we want to find that fit. So a lot of times I say this, unless you just know you've got that other property and you really don't care where it is, let's just tear up the main area you want to go to. Like if you used to go into Sandestin, let's find and make sure we know what the best available rental option is in Sandestin before we move on to anything else. Okay? Because you get in this trap of just getting focused on the numbers, but it always comes back around to use. I promise you. So I like to start with use and just make sure we can't find anything at all that matches up with your goals and needs in the area that you love, because I think that's what's going to keep you holding on to the property. Because otherwise you're going to buy something and then as soon as you can trade over, you're going to, right? So I've only done this for 16 years now, and it's only a handful of times I can even think of where they just bought it for sheer investment, never used it, and didn't need anything they needed to daydream about, okay? So those are my 6 most common questions that I have. Those are the 6, I would say in some variety, these come up the most and every time during my conversation. So if I've missed something or you want to hear more on one of these specific topics, but I wanted to just give you some value today, go ahead and give you these talking points, and it may make you think through kind of the process, whether you're in early stages, you purchased before, you're thinking about doing things different this time and getting a feel for our area. I'm an open book. Just call me with anything, comment below, but I hope you find this as a value. And if I can add anything else to this, please do not hesitate.